What if the key to managing a really tough chronic disease wasn't just in a prescription bottle? What if it was also in your spice rack and in your daily routine? Today, we are diving deep into ankylosing spondylitis, or AS, and looking at it through a new lens, an integrative one. Now, this is not about ditching medicine. It's about building a smarter, more powerful system around it. Let's get into it.
Okay, get this. Imagine a painful, chronic disease where a massive 90% of patients all share a single genetic marker. It sounds like science fiction, right? Well, it's the reality for ankylosing spondylitis. Now, just having the gene doesn't mean you're destined to get AS, but it gives us this huge clue about the very specific battle that's being fought inside the body.
So here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to understand that battle within. Then we'll check out the conventional medical playbook. After that, we'll explore nature's own anti-inflammatory arsenal, which is fascinating. From there, we'll see how diet and exercise can fuel the fight. And finally, we'll pull it all together and see the true power of synergy.
All right, let's start with section 1, the battle within. What exactly is ankylosing spondylitis?
So AS is a chronic inflammatory disease. Its main target is the spine and the sacroiliac joints. That's right, where your spine connects to your pelvis. It causes a lot of pain and stiffness. But here's the real kicker. In the most severe cases, the inflammation can cause new bone to form, and the vertebrae can literally fuse together, turning a flexible spine into one rigid, immovable column. That is the outcome we absolutely want to prevent. Now, to understand this fight, you gotta know the key players. First, you have the gene, HLA-B27, that 90% marker we talked about. Second, the target, these things called entheses. Just think of them as the body's anchor points, where tendons and ligaments hook onto bone. That's ground zero for the attack. And third, you have the instigators. These are inflammatory molecules, things like TNF-alpha and IL-17, that act like gasoline on the fire.
Okay, on to section 2, the conventional medical playbook. What are doctors doing to fight back?
So the standard playbook really has two main options. First, you've got NSAIDs, like ibuprofen. They're good for dialing down symptoms, but they can come with long-term risks for your stomach and your heart. Then you've got the heavy hitters, biologics. These are super targeted drugs that go straight for those instigator molecules we just mentioned. They can actually modify the course of the disease, which is huge. But there's a catch. They can also make you more vulnerable to infections. And it's that trade-off, that risk-reward balance, that makes exploring other options so incredibly important.
Which brings us to section 3, nature's anti-inflammatory arsenal. And this, my friends, is where we start looking beyond the pharmacy. Let's start with curcumin. That's the powerful active compound in the spice turmeric. It's a natural anti-inflammatory, and it works in a really cool way. It actually blocks a key pathway in our cells called NF-kappa B. The easiest way to think about NF-kappa B is as the master switch for inflammation in your body. Curcumin's job is to sneak in and flip that master switch into the off position. It's a brilliant mechanism, really. But there's a problem. Our bodies are surprisingly bad at absorbing curcumin on its own. So the big question isn't just if it works, but how do we get enough of it into our system to actually make it work? How do we maximize its power? And the answer is pretty amazing. It's piperine, the active compound in plain old black pepper. By adding a little bit of black pepper, you can increase your body's absorption of curcumin by up to 2,000%. Let me say that again. 2,000%. That's a 20 times boost. It's one of the most incredible biological hacks you can find right in your kitchen. And turmeric doesn't stand alone. Your spice rack is basically a little pharmacy. Ginger has gingerol. Cinnamon has cinnamaldehyde. Both of these are also well known for their anti-inflammatory effects. It's this idea that the power to help manage inflammation might already be sitting in your pantry. So that brings us to section 4, fueling the fight with diet and exercise. Because it isn't just about adding a pinch of this or that. It's about the whole system. It's about how you fuel your body every single day. Let's talk diet first. Because every single meal, every snack is a choice. It's an opportunity to either fuel the fire of inflammation or to help put it out. So there's this really strong connection between a low-carbohydrate diet and lower inflammation. It works like this. When you cut way back on sugars and refined flours, you help lower your body's insulin resistance. When that happens, it can lead to a measurable drop in something called C-reactive protein, or CRP. And CRP is one of the main things your doctor looks at in your blood to see how much inflammation is in your system. It's a direct link. Less sugar can mean less inflammation. And if diet is one side of the coin, the other is movement. For a condition like this, exercise isn't just about staying fit. It really is a form of medicine. Check this out. When you exercise, and this can be anything from a walk to more intense training, your muscles release their own anti-inflammatory substances. They're called myokines. So just think about that for a second. Your own muscles become these tiny on-demand factories producing anti-inflammatory molecules. Now the key here, and this is absolutely non-negotiable with AS, is that you have to work under professional supervision. You need guidance to make sure the movement is safe, effective, and helps you, not hurts you. Which brings us to our final section. Section 5, the true power of synergy. This is where we tie it all together and see how 1 + 1 can equal 5.
Synergy. This is the whole point. It means that all these pieces, the medication, the diet, the spices, the exercise, they aren't just separate things you're doing. When you combine them intelligently, they work together to create an effect that is way more powerful than the sum of its parts.
And let's be absolutely crystal clear on this. The goal here is not to replace your medication. The goal is to integrate these smart, personalized strategies with your medical treatment. It's about building a more complete, a more holistic, and powerful approach to your health. And it's always, always done as a team with your doctors. So all of this leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. We've seen that we can influence the body's master switches of inflammation with food. We can use our own muscles to create medicine. If this kind of integrated approach holds so much promise for a complex condition like AS, just imagine, what could this mean for how we approach and treat all chronic inflammatory diseases in the future? That is a really powerful thought to end on. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.